Hello, this is Rob Chadwick with ADL. This is the 9th in a series of quick video tutorials on how to use the Virtual World Framework Sandbox application. Now, in the previous tutorial, we looked at how to create this nifty terrain shape with primitives and modifiers. And just to recap, this is a simple plane, and you'll see here in the object properties, all the settings for the plane are turned all the way up, with a simplex noise modifier. And in the previous example, we played with these settings until we got this shape out of it. Now you'll note that as a terrain goes, this has a major problem. It is, of course, a giant checkerboard. So in this lesson, I want to talk about the material editor. The material editor appears in the panels here at the side. It'll appear up at the top if you hit the button. The button for it is on the list of windows up here, and it's the blue circle. When I click it, I'll get this material editor button to open. Now, the material editor is organized into a couple of sections. It's got the material base section, and this slides out and rolls out with tabs and things just the same way that the object properties does. I'm going to go ahead and close the object properties. This has a couple of color pickers for the colors and such, and a couple of sliders for different properties, and a tab for each texture layer. Each texture layer is going to have a whole bunch of properties with sliders, just like you're used to, and a couple of little drop downs here that let you choose different things. I'll talk about those in a moment. Now, to start, this object, and all objects by default have this checker texture on them. So for material base, I'll click on texture layer 0, and I'll hit the big old delete button, and you'll see the checker just goes away. Now, you can't even see this object, right? It's kind of solid white. So I'm going to change the diffuse color to, let's just do a green for now, right? There's a kind of foresty green. Hey, beautiful. And we'll go back and add a texture in a moment. I'm just doing this so we can see some properties. So we've got the diffuse color. There's an ambient color. I'm going to leave that alone. There's a specular color. If I were to pick a red or something, you'd see these crazy red shines on top of the green material. I don't really know why you would want to do that, so I'm going to change this back to white. You'll also notice that as far as ground goes, it's pretty shiny. I'm just going to grab the shininess slider. You'll see that I can turn the shininess up or down. Now, this isn't the brightness of the shine. This is kind of how tight these shines are. Or I can grab the specular level and just darken the shine away completely. If I turn it way up, I can make this kind of ridiculous shiny glowy thing, but I'm going to turn the specular level all the way down. I could even change the alpha, all right? And look, if I fade it away, you can start to see the grid underneath, but I'm going to leave that all the way up. So I'm not going to mess with the full bright or enable shadows. And to be honest, this material editor was based on a previous version of the system, and the material editor's design doesn't really match the system's interior materials as well as it could. But it's workable for now, so I'm going to teach you how to use it. Let's hit Add Layer, and you'll see now I'm back to the same white and black checker. Of course, the white is now multiplied by the color, and the color gives us the green. Let me change that back to just white. All right. Let's pick a different texture. I'll click on the big thumbnail of the texture, and you'll get the map browser. The map browser has folders, and as I click through the folders, I'll see all the different textures I can choose. You hit the up arrow here to go to the first texture. I'm going to grab this gray texture, and I hit the X button, and you'll see that, okay, great, now I've loaded on here this desert texture. I do want to go back. I feel like something here is kind of funny looking. Oh, there we go. That's better. Let me turn the ambient up. That's much better. Okay, so the next thing you'll notice is that this texture really is it's too big, right? It doesn't tile very well. All I have to do is open the texture layer, and I'll turn the scale of the texture up. This is really like a tiling. You see I just drag it up, and the texture will tile. So that's cool, right? Now we definitely have some kind of desert terrain. What can we do to make it look better? Well, we could do a bump map. We could also do a normal map. There's a couple of things we can do. I'll go back to Material Base and add another layer. Now you'll notice we're back to the original checker. That's because we're mapping to this property, the diffuse color. Let's say I don't want to map to the diffuse color. I want to map to bump map. Now you'll see I've got this crazy checker pattern superimposed on top of the desert terrain that we picked earlier. That's because we're using this image to define kind of a fine grit to the surface. A nice trick is to use the same image for both of the bump map and the diffuse color, because that'll give you bumps that align with features in the real one. And you'll see, it might not be too easy to see on YouTube here, but you should see this very fine grit texture now matches and makes the ground look all nice and bumpy. You can dial down the effect of any texture layer with the alpha channel. Now, in some cases, it doesn't really make sense to have like transparency on a bump map. Instead, what it does is just less bump. So with the alpha all the way down, there's no bump from the bump map. With the alpha all the way up, there's the most bump possible from the bump map. You'll also note that this uses the same scale as the diffuse map. This is kind of one of the places where the GUI doesn't make as much sense as it could. There shouldn't be a scale slider if it doesn't do anything. Well, the scale slider for the bump map doesn't do anything because the bump map is going to align itself to the diffuse map. We can go on to create some kind of another map. Let's go back to Material Base, add a layer. Again, it's mapping to the diffuse color, so it just looks like this. You do see the original bump map underneath it. But let me go ahead and select, I don't know. Let's go just pick something. This one. Very good. And let's change it to be the specular map. This is going to define where the object is shiny. However, I've turned the shines all the way dark. If I turn them up, there we go. Now we can see we have this really crazy shininess happening on top of these bumps. Oh, yeah, I have to let go of the mouse there. Obviously, you would never have a material or a ground shine like that, although it could be kind of glints in the sun or something. But anyway, that's how the material editor works. You can layer these textures together. You can add different maps for different properties. I should also note that if you have a multi-selection, this will work exactly as you expect. Okay, and as I was just saying, if you do a multiple selection, you'll just go ahead and be able to change these simultaneously. One thing to note is that if you do have multiple objects selected and one of them has a different texture than the other, when you do a multi-selection, you'll just see the material of the first object you selected. So in this case, I've got two different maps, but if I change them both to be this brick, or I don't know, this wood pattern, I only saw the one. So they become aligned when they weren't aligned before. And there you have it. So that's how you use the material editor. And now we have a pretty nifty landscape with kind of crazy looking spheres of wood, which maybe I'll delete. There we go.